Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bok for short. I'm Edward Box. So, got a live review for you, and it's Iron Maiden's show at the London Stadium the weekend just gone. Hadn't seen Maiden since 2006, so I picked a good show to go to. This was their 50th anniversary, and just a few blocks away from where the band was conceived, probably in Steve Harris's bedroom. It's a pretty amazing story, really, and when you consider there was 80,000 people there, it was absolutely rammed, and people were singing every word. So let's dive into it, really. Met my mates, we went down and had a few drinks, place called the Bat and Ball, got warmed up with a bit of metal, and then walked up to the stadium, and the sheer size of it was pretty amazing. And then outside you had all the merchandise digitally projected that you could buy, which I've not seen before. This was even more merchandise, or as much certainly as DC when I saw them at the O2 in London back in 2009. But we went in, and the size of this place, and obviously it holds 60,000 for match days, but when you get the pitch covered, and then the stage a bit cut off at the back, obviously it can hold 75, 80. Pretty incredible. Didn't see the support act, the Raven Age, the first support act. That's Steve Harris's son's band. We were too busy boozing. Sorry, Steve Harris's son's band. I'm sure you're fine because you're the son of Steve Harris. But anyway, then we watched Hailstorm. Hailstorm's a band, I'm not into them, but she's got a great voice. Obviously, there's quite a lot of albums, and they've been on the scene a while. And what struck me is how difficult it is for a band in an environment like this when you're not the reason people are there. Although a lot of people would have been there, and some people to see Hailstorm. They're a really good band. The vocals sounded excellent, but it was hard to pick out the guitars and the bass, particularly the guitar. It was just getting lost in the wash of the stadium. The drums sounded really good, and I thought the drummer was excellent. He did do a drum solo, which maybe you shouldn't do when you're in a support band, but in all truth, it was very, very short. It was very entertaining, and he got out some massive drumsticks at the end. Apparently that's his party piece, but his drumming really cut through. He's very powerful, very solid. It's the brother of Lizzie Hale, the singer. She worked really hard on every level of her performance. What is wrong with this band? I mean, I think they're pretty good. It's just they're kind of lacking enough songs, and Miss the Misery was kind of the second song in, I think that's what it's called, and that's the kind of signature cut. A lot of the songs were kind of heavy, but you couldn't define, articulate a riff, so that any kind of hook for the song was based on her vocals. They were going down well, but it's just difficult, the sound when you're in these places. Now, I've got to be honest, this was the first time I've been to a stadium gig. I've never seen a band in a stadium. Typically the bands I like are not big enough to play stadiums. I haven't been to, last time I went to a festival was Donington in 1988. So football stadium gig I haven't been to. I've been to some big arena venues. But here the whole thing is so big that unless you're down the front or about, in the centre of the sound hole, as I call it, and about 50 feet, maybe 100 feet from the front, it just sounds, it's hard to kind of pick everything out. So I think it's hard for a band to reach possible, people. But, the idea of this is you play to 80,000 people, and if 10% or 5% of them go and check out your band, listen to your album, and, a small percentage of them like it, you've got some new fans, and next time you come to the UK and you're playing an academy-sized venue or the Manchester Apollo on a package or something, you're going to do bad. But anyway, Hailstorm did good in what's a tough environment. So on to Maiden, and this is the first time out for their new drummer, so they hit the stage with it was Ides of March going into Murders in the Rue Morgue. Now, so this was a treat for me. Killers is my favourite album. They played Murders in the Rue Morgue. Rothschild, and later on they played Killers, probably my favourite Maiden track of all time. Obviously it sounded great with Bruce singing. Really good on this show tour. For the first time they've got, instead of backdrops and moving backdrops, they've got digital projected images, and I thought they'd done a superb job with this. You had the big screens either side where they were basically had the cameras on different aspects of the band and the performance, and then the back projection, basically graphics illustrating every moment. The actual show opened up with a kind of run through some of the old haunts in a kind of digital cartoon images. It was done in the style, if you remember the women in uniform, it was a single, the sort of brown, the yellow tint of that. That's what it was like, and it was going to the Ruskin's Arms, recreation in digital form, the Ruskin's Arms, and then of course it finished at the Cart and Horses. It was really good, really nostalgic. It went down Acacia Avenue. It was quite funny because I was stood behind someone who was with someone who obviously knew nothing about Maiden. This person was explaining every sort of, Acacia Avenue, yeah, they had a song called 22 Acacia Avenue. But this was really good. It really built things up and showed the kind of history and legacy. We're in that period now where these bands have been going a long time. So like I said before, they came on with Women in Uniform, with Murders in Rue Morgan into Rothschild. So I'll go through the other tracks they did off albums, off Iron Maiden. Of course, you got Iron Maiden near the end, Phantom of the Opera, which I think was the third track in. That was great, really good. Good to see Dave Murray solo played well. For those of you who've seen him live at the Rainbow Show, he doesn't bend a note right on that solo. Dave Murray was spot on the whole gig, as was Adrian Smith. Yannick Gers, he seemed a bit calmer this time. I just ignored him. Sorry, Yannick. But anyway, this was an excellent Phantom of the Opera. And they also did off Number of the Beast title track, Run to the Hills, which I enjoyed seeing, and I enjoyed seeing a recreation of the graphics of the picture disc. My brother had that when I was a kid. Run to the Hills, obviously it's a cheesy track and we've heard it too many times, but it was fun to really get into it and sing with the crowd. It's a real anthem. Of course, I did Hallowed Be Thy Name later on. Bruce was locked in a dungeon set and doing his dramatic thing. And great graphics on that. Off the Trooper course, got to run out, and a big treat for me was the Power Slave stuff. Aces High, Two Mr. Midnight, and of course the incendiary double bill of Power Slave and Rhyme H and Mariner, possibly the two greatest tracks they've done in the Bruce era. The graphics here were brilliant. The Power Slave, in the Power Slave track, you had a recreation of the artwork, but done in a different style, with beautiful, crystal clear, I guess 4K images. And then Rhyme and Ancient Mariner, that had a whole sort of narrative going on with the boat and the story of the albatross and so on, and the mariner telling his tale. Really, really good. Then Summer in Time, at the end of the show, you got Wasted Years, which had superb futuristic sort of spaceship graphics, like you're in a spaceship with the different panels. I did Seventh Son of Seventh Son of Seventh Son. I think I've covered all the tracks there, apart from Fear of the Dark. Not a track I'm bothered about. To me, that's going into the sort of Maiden past the prime. But it's got whoa-whoa-whoas and it gets the crowd going. Cool graphics on this as well. It had a big moon and Bruce just walking across with a lantern, which I liked. So what of the performances? I said the guitars were excellent. The Bomber was just top. This must have been an amazing moment for him. He must have been playing and just thinking back to that time sat on the end of his bed, coming up with these songs, which a lot were written very early on, I think, for the first album. And they just got... He also had confidence, in his songs, and he just changed band members to get the right band. And then 79, of course, he achieved that in 98, so late 79, they got the deal. But he was doing his usual aiming, and it's always great when he aims his bass, and he was doing it very judiciously, and at the end of one song, he's a great point at the crowd. Later on, he came out in his West Ham top, which was brilliant to see. I thought the drummer, now it's Simon, I've forgotten his second name, apologies. I thought this guy, there's a lot of pressure on him. I thought he did a superb job. And my mate of mine, we agreed, and dare we say it, that he's not a better drummer than Nick or Clive, but he had a tightness to him, and I think Maiden sounded a little more solid with him. And I think in an arena situation, in a venue this size, I think his solidity and his firmness really paid off. His tom fills were excellent. There's loads of clarity there on the toms. It had a firm grip on the downbeat, and it just had an extra bit of glue. And I think, although I guess there's talk about Nico doing albums, recording, maybe they should give him a shot. Maybe he should do the album. He's got experience with British Line. It might just add a different twist or element to the main sound, and that wouldn't be a bad thing for Maiden. You know, doing another album. If they do the thing with Nico and Kevin Shirley, you're just going to end up with the same results. But anyway, I thought he did a really good job, and you can actually see him behind the kit that Bruce pointed out. And that may be disappointing to people. I mean, I love, you know, seeing a bigger drum kit. But, you know, this guy, I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, he's got this wonderful opportunity later in his life, and he did an excellent job. Bruce, what can you say? The guy is and always will be the greatest ever metal frontman. I love Rob Halford, I love Dio, they're always my favourite singers, Jeff Tate. But Bruce, hands down, the guy was brilliant. His singing was really good, his pitching, his whole dynamic with his performance, his drama. That's why Maiden are so successful. One of the reasons is Bruce has that style where they could go into a cowshed in America, into a big stadium, and he can draw the audience in and get them going. You know, it's a cliche when you go scream for me London, but Christ, you do. And it got me thinking really about why was it Maiden? I've always thought this, why were Maiden bigger than anyone else save Metallica? And the first reason is I think just sticking to their guns. That could be frustrating for fans, for sort of more, you know, I'm a fan but a more casual listener, because you want them to stretch out sometimes away from the kind of stock tropes they do. But in the downtime, in the down period, which younger audience members there who weren't even born when Maiden had the off time in the 90s, when metal was just not in fashion, won't realise that Maiden, you know, they got blazing and maybe should have got a better singer, but they just stuck to the guns still. They still had that classic branding, they still had Eddie, and Bruce was only away for 6 years. So when he came back, obviously people were really excited, but there's still a bit of work to do. Brave New World made number 9 in the UK charts, it didn't make number 1. It sold very well worldwide because people were buying records back then and CDs, but he didn't sell perhaps like their other albums did. But they came back, they did Dance of Death, you know, they built it up, started getting those top slots again, and this is the upshot of that. You know, the upshot of that rebuild with Bruce and Adrian is you just see, you know, what they've accomplished. You know, they're kind of bigger than ever in terms of being a live act. Of course, the branding's always played a huge part. Right from the outset, you had that Iron Maiden logo designed by Steve Harris, it was perfected, I don't know by who. You've got Eddie, which is pure accident, and from there on in, the figure of Eddie, the figure of the Iron Maiden logo across the top, it never changed. You know, I look at bands sometimes and I think, why have you changed your logo? Why haven't you used your logo? Why have you put your logo in a different position? And there's a lesson there for any band. Stick with your logo. You might not get it on your first release, I don't know, but you need a bloody good logo and stick with it. Have that front and centre of your artwork. That is your brand. Of course, Eddie was part of that. In the show, Eddie came out in Killers. It was excellent. Of course, normally comes out in Iron Maiden, I think. But it was really good, and this is where it put a different spin on the show, you know, having the graphics. But that was a lot of fun. Eddie was like, you know, whacking with the axe. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. And of course, like I said before, you know, Maiden, album artwork brand is sticking to the guns, really. And doing songs that appeal to a sense of Britishness. When they did Aces High, you know, it captures that patriotic aspect of British culture in a way for someone like Judas Priest, where the Painkiller, or, you know, the Hellion or whatever, a metal monster, can't quite, Eddie's a metal monster, but he's kind of, you know, he's kind of from the local streets, isn't he? That was kind of my thoughts there. Maiden, of course, came out at exactly the right time as well. They could learn from all the things from Lizzie, Priest, Sabbath, Wishbone Ash. Look at the branding things, you know, think about like Judas Priest developing cool artwork and Rush, and get in on that, and, you know, it just went on from there. You know, they just struck perfectly at the right time. So overall, I really enjoyed the gig. My main criticism was, unless you're down in front, I couldn't really, the sound, you know, just wasn't happening for me. But that's because of the size of these things. But you couldn't fault Maine's performance. You couldn't fault the show. The set list, yeah, there's maybe some things I like to have heard. I don't need to hear Iron Maiden, but it's kind of their anthem, as a lot of people feel, myself included, it's the weakest track on the Maiden album. I don't think it's that great, but you've got a song named after your band. I suppose you're going to do it. But, you know, generally speaking, it was really good. I probably won't see Maiden again, I've got to be honest. I really enjoyed this. It was a great day out. I've seen them a really seminal show for them, and a seminal show, I think, in the history of heavy metal, probably. So I feel pretty lucky doing that. Okay, remember, share and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.